Obviously, there's been a lot of talk regarding Cooper Rush and his performances and everything in the preseason thus far. I think across the 3 games, he's 26 for 38 for 283 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Really, other than his first game where he was only 50% completion, he's really looked every bit the part of a backup despite being an undrafted rookie. Do you think that Dallas, despite their affinity for Kellen Moore, should really look at moving him to be Dak's backup?
Well, what I think collectively is that the footsteps are very loud in Kellen Moore's mind, and he can barely feel the vibrations from the footsteps of the Cooper Rush. And today I was looking at the report from DallasCowboys.com. Check out their website. Brian Broaddus stating that actually Cooper Rush started with the second team today. So I think the
Yep.
process of the whole situation is that if we look at it from the fans' view, is that Cooper Rush is 6'3", 230 some odd pounds. So he's got the build, he got the motif, as they say, to play that
Mm-hmm.
position. Now, Kellen Moore, I was looking at the research. He pretty much grew up in the same state that the what's that guy named, the coach, Scott
Linehan?
Linehan, yeah.
Yep.
So I think their fathers or something like that played football together. They're from the same school, quote unquote, in high school, all the way from college all the way into the Detroits of the world. So the problem is that now you have the teacher's pet, quote unquote, or the teacher's son, or however you want to use that saying or slogan. Now you have the issue that, dude, is this guy privileged to play? Because now all of the other players are going to look side-eyed and say, hey, this Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott has got his ballot in, got his vote in for Cooper Rush. He's showing
Right.
now the pedigree and all that stuff out there on the field. He's studying. He's one of the first persons there, the last one to leave. That kind of sounds just like Dak Prescott. So it's Cooper Rush's job at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I fully agree. As you said, Cooper Rush, 6'3", 230 pounds. Kellen Moore is right about 6 foot. I almost think he's a hair under that.
Right,
And
5'11".
yeah, and like 200 pounds. And we're also talking about a guy, for all the talk of wanting a more experienced veteran behind him, Kellen Moore has maybe 4 career starts, 2 of which happened only because of the Romo injuries of 2015. So I really think that people overrate a little bit Kellen Moore's experience. Yes, he's been on the sideline. I don't doubt that he knows the playbook and that he has even possibly a mind for the game. But if you don't have the arm strength and you don't really have the in-game experience, I don't think it has the same value to justify being the guaranteed backup, no questions asked. The big game Dallas will point to, I think, for him is the second Redskins game of 2015. It was Kellen Moore's second career start, I believe, or at least the second one for the Cowboys. No, that would have been his second one because he never played in Detroit. So
Hmm.
he threw for 425 yards, and in NFL history, he is one of 2 players to throw for at least 400 yards in one of their first 2 career starts, the other being Cam Newton in his career debut in Carolina. So he got that. That's pretty much what I think they're holding on to, is this belief that even though he doesn't have the arm strength, that maybe he still has that in there and in him. But it's not showing right now in training camp, and I really think that they're overvaluing one game and pretty much what was garbage time at that point of that season. There was nothing left to play for, and I think that they
Hmm.
need to move on to Cooper Rush, definitely.
Yes, and when you started to just evaluate smaller, shorter quarterbacks who just made it to eventually start in the NFL, they all had one thing in common, outside of Drew Brees, and that was the scramble ability to get out and move around. Doug Flutie's of the world, Frank Tarkenton, I think we're going way back to Minnesota. His ability to escape and then be elusive. Even if I throw in the Johnny Manziel's of the world, Kelly Moore
Yeah,
and Johnny is the same guy. It's just the fact that Johnny can move and get out of the pocket. He can save himself when the pocket collapses, and he can roll out. And then plus, Johnny is not as accurate as Kellen Moore, but that's if Kellen Moore was elusive, if he was fast, if he was getting up like what's that guy for the I want to say, because he's not that tall and big too as well for the Bills. That quarterback,
Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
If you look at Tyrod Taylor, he's not this big guy, right? But he can get out, he can squirt out and get skinny, get small, and get away if needed. And that's the element that Kellen Moore don't have. He's 5'11" at best, and he don't have the strong arm, and he got to backpedal to see over the offensive line. So it's just crazy to think that he will ever win multiple games in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. And on that accuracy front, Kellen Moore for his career is a 58.7% completion percentage. Manziel, who you also mentioned, conversely, is 57%. Wow. And Manziel might have only had 2 years in the league, but again, Kellen Moore has 2 starts. So it's probably a pretty even sample size. If anything, I would say the Kellen Moore size is too small to denote. So it's hard to say, but I really think that they're looking too much at his pedigree at Boise State, where he went like 44-2 as a starter in his 4-year career. And like you pointed out, the Linehan connection there. I know Linehan is in love pretty much with the idea of him as a grooming project. He brought him over from Detroit when he became the Dallas offensive coordinator. And he has remained steadfast to him. And I think that it's probably to the detriment at this point.
Yeah, this staff is very loyal. We all know, and that's just how this staff is built. And at one point, we can say the coaching staff is stubborn to a degree, but this is the same staff that picked up the Dak Prescotts of the world and went out and did the Bryce Butler deal, and found Rico Gather. So we can't at one hand say, hey, just get rid of the staffing or get rid of the decision makers out there on the staffing board. We just got to fall back and say, okay, it is what it is at this point. Let the tape speak for itself, and hopefully they can see with their eyes and say, hey, this Cooper Rush kid, if we put him out on waivers, we guarantee you he won't clear it. But the Kellen Moore, he will clear waivers,
Yeah, absolutely. And that was what you just said, exactly my feelings on Cooper Rush. After even 2 games, I was thinking like, man, this is someone they really need to make sure they hang on to on the practice squad. But after his last game, 8 of 9, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and the fact that he drove both touchdown drives with the same guys, Kellen Moore couldn't even move down the field. And he does drives of 74 and 76 yards for scores. That really opened my eyes to like, man, if they don't put him on the roster now, they're not keeping him. Someone is going to pick him up. You got 10 teams around the league who don't like their starter, and Lord knows how many more would love a better backup. There's no way he clears waivers if Dallas cuts him.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I agree 1,000%.
Another thing I'm also curious about, kind of pivoting here a little bit, Dez, his performance in the game the other night, really nice. 2 catches, I think 55 yards, and the beautiful twisting dive into the end zone on the 32-yard strike from Dak Prescott. The talk about him I've been hearing a lot is that he is as close to his 2014 form as anyone has seen in the last couple of years. Do you think that if he is back to that form, that it can help kind of ebb the strain offensively, with Zeke still looking like he's facing a 4 or 6 game suspension most likely?
Yeah, I believe the continuity that Dak Prescott is developing with Dez Bryant is going to put Dez Bryant in that top tier of 1st through 5 receivers in this league. And I would say, he's just as comparable to the Julio Jones and the number 13 kid from the Giants. And it's just one of those things that, he went through a slew of – he's been in the league for 7 years now, right? Yeah. They're going on 8. So he went through a contract dispute. He got injured. He lost his quarterback. So not trying to make excuses for Dez Bryant, but Dez is a beast out there. And you will be able to see this year his development, his route running. Everything's going to be crisper, sharp, and it's going to be just one of those things that, hey, you're going to be like, hey, this guy is 2014 Dez. He is flying out there running his routes. He is making the things happen. And we might forget the fact that we need a Ezekiel Elliott. Not saying that these guys, this team of running backs can suffice what Ezekiel Elliott did out there on the field. But what I'm saying is that if Dez is 2014 Dez, you're going to see the holes open up even more for Run DMC, what's his real name? Darren McFadden, right?
Yep.
And Alfred Morris, if they decided to stay with him, and Rod Smith. What I really want to see coming up in the next following days or next following week, I want to see Rod Smith run behind the number 1 offensive line. I think this kid got something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even realize that Rod was Jalen's brother.
Yeah,
I don't know how I was unaware of that until the last game. But so back on the Dez thing, one thing I thought was kind of funny, and this was like the main criticism you heard of Dak all last year, even though he had probably the greatest rookie quarterback season in NFL history. There was all this knock against his ability to connect on the deep ball and his lack of chemistry with Dez Bryant. But people overlook the fact that Dez missed a great portion of training camp last year with, I think, a nagging foot injury, and then had the fractured kneecap in like Dak's second game. So, and regarding training camp as well, Dak didn't even become the starter until week 3 when Romo went down against Seattle in the preseason game. So they had no time to build chemistry at all. Then in season, when Dak was getting his early, trial by fire development, Dez was gone for 3 or 4 games with a fractured knee. So it wasn't really until the last 4 or 5 games of the season when you saw Dez suddenly catch fire, I think, that you started to see that great chemistry that we're seeing now, that we're hearing so much about from training camp, that you caught a glimpse of against the Colts there on that first series. I think it actually has the potential to be one of the more lethal quarterback wide receiver combinations in the league this year.
Yeah, that tandem is going to be fantastic. The thing is, with bigger and taller wide receivers like the Dez Bryant, who body people out of positions and catches the ball, it all comes with trust. It comes with straight repetition. We know that it took time for Tony Romo to develop that type of repetition. So one of Tony Romo's best advice that he gave Dak Prescott was, hey, when in trouble, pass to number 11. He always open. And that came into right because number 11, Cole Beasley, he runs in and out of his routes pretty crisp, and he'll know where he will be at on the actual playing field. But you can't translate that to Dez Bryant because you had to develop a pattern whereas you had to figure out, okay, because Dez Bryant window target doesn't look like he's open, but he's open, you see. So yeah, that type of aspect with Dez Bryant took at least 6 months to 7 months to maybe a year, quote unquote, for him to develop that type of continuity. So that's what's going on with that particular pitcher. So now that Dez Bryant is in shape and having the best camp of his life, that's why Dak Prescott saying, hey, he is the most improved player out there on the field because of that aspect of him developing that continuity, developing that rapport with the actual quarterback and quarterback to receiver combination. Sorry about that. My phone is just running off crazy.
Yeah, no worries.
Yes, indeed. So that's what I wanted to say. Developing that type of continuity with Dak Prescott to Dez is going to be lethal this year. It's going to be pretty much, quote unquote, unstoppable. Yeah,
I agree. I've gotten more and more excited the more I've heard about Dez and Dak. I think today Dez burned Nolan Carroll on a 50-yard strike. I heard that was something my team stream sent me the video of, and it looked like just Dez turning on the jets and just flying by. But it's good to see that explosiveness out of him, because that's one thing that the last 2 years I kind of felt like I was worried he was losing a step, but it looks like he just needed more time to kind of round back into full health and back into his full shape when he was in that conversation for the 2 or 3 best wide receivers in the NFL in 2014. Oh, yes, he's top, and people are going to see that this year.
Now, if healthy, I just want to pray and hoping he can stay healthy. And people are going to see. I predict that he's going to get 16 plus touchdowns.
Wow. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would be great. And that's actually certainly possible, especially early on in the season without Zeke, assuming that he doesn't get at least a reduction or that he doesn't, file an injunction and find himself, playing this season because he's fighting the NFL legally. And who knows what that happens with that? It might end up like the Tom Brady thing where it just pushes it off a year. But yeah, if Zeke's out, then yeah, you would assume they're going to lean heavier on Dez, especially with Darren McFadden, him coughing up the ball the other night and at the Colts 7. The first team looked great for about 3 or 4 minutes. You were even starting to think like, man, maybe they're not going to miss Zeke. I mean, you want his talent, obviously, but it's like, man, maybe they're not going to miss him as much as everyone thinks. And then you see something like that, and you're kind of reminded that, yeah, you got an older McFadden who's had 1 or 2 pretty good years in his career, not really ever a great running back in the league.
Right, and if you want to do like a quick comparison, DeMarco Murray was the same type of guy who would run down the field and do all these spectacular runs and then get close to the end zone and then he'll fumble the ball. Mm-hmm. And we see a lot of that too as well with Darren McFadden. Especially 2015, he'll take a big run. I think he fumbled the ball near the end zone with the Green Bay game. Yep. He did the same thing against the Washington Redskins game towards the latter, because we could have pretty much won that game with the Kellen Moore passing 400 yards. So it's one of those things there that that you got to say to yourself, will he be able to hold on to the ball? But with this particular offensive line, can we get a little meaner? Can we get a little grittier? Can we put number 45 out there, Rod Smith, and see if he's be able to hold on to the ball? I'm not trying to pass up on Alfred Morris, but there's just something about Alfred Morris that's just not clicking to me like the other fans are out there see. It's just something that I have my reservation on, and I don't know what it is with number 46.
Yeah, I feel like with Alfred Morris, when he was at his best, his 2 best seasons were, well, especially his rookie season, it was when he had an option quarterback, a running threat quarterback that he was paired with. I think that does a pretty good job kind of masking his not great hands when it comes to receiving out of the backfield, and his he's an okay blocker. I've never heard him anyone talk about him in especially glowing terms regarding that. And then the fact that he doesn't play special teams, I definitely think Rod Smith offers more, brings more to the table, and I agree in that regard. I still think Alfred Morris should probably be the one who's allowed to move on to another team. And especially if you got to hold on to Cooper Rush, they need to probably cut Kellen Moore. Frankly, they could afford to cut Moore and McCowan. I haven't even seen McCowan play again since his disastrous debut. I don't know if maybe they're just trying to keep him on the sidelines just so he can literally just talk to Dak and coach him up in terms of experience, and that way, do the Mark Sanchez thing, but not actually be on the field ever.
Right. That something about, experienced quarterbacks, you always want to have them close by. Now, the deal is with Kellen Moore. I think they gave him a $750 signing bonus this off season. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that they want to, a lot of pride is on the line. So I don't think they're going to want to get rid of that. So maybe Luke, maybe the guy that's the odd man out. Maybe they stick with 3 quarterbacks. I hate to say that, but the best option would be saying, Kellen Moore, come on, you're 5'11". We know you know the offense like the back of your hand. Have you ever thought about being a player's coach?
Right?
Because we know you know the offense, and he's very smart on defense. So too as well. So knowing the defense, knowing how to read defense, that's something that he's keen on. But the problem is he can't get the ball to where the spot is at, and he's just so small and tiny. Tiny Moore is what I want to call him.
Yeah, and you saw that in the first preseason game as well. He had a couple passes early on batted down at the line. So I definitely think that if they're going to keep him on, they definitely need to let McCowan go. But I would rather probably see Kellen Moore go, just because McCowan might at least have some wisdom just from being in the league as long as he has, that he can still impart to Dak and kind of help. kind of help in that regard as far as the nuances of reading defense and things like that. I think he has more value in that role than Kellen Moore would have, certainly as Dak's backup. I mean, God forbid Dak miss a game or two because of some kind of foot or, ankle injury or something like that, and you have to suddenly roll Kellen Moore out there and hope he can get you a win.
And that's the thing that a lot of fans don't see who's pro Kellen Moore. When you're talking about scouting a quarterback, taking away his best options, it's just gonna be one of those things. Whereas he's 5'11", they stop off the block off the passing lanes because naturally the offensive line would block off anything else. And then if you're talking about somebody blitzing off the right side versus the left side, that could be a whole bunch of things that they just probably won't look great. In any of the games that Kellen Moore played in, I don't think nobody was pretty much scouted him. I don't think the Redskins scouted him. I don't think the New York Jets scouted him, and the New York Bills or New Jersey Bills or whoever the Bills are.
Buffalo, yeah.
Buffalo, New York I'm thinking about. But Buffalo Bills, they're located in New York, right?
Yes, Buffalo, New York.
Okay, yeah. That's what I'm thinking about. I don't know what's going on with my mind. But they didn't scout him, I bet. So there's going to be a scenario whereas, he looks nice for that 400-yard game like you lamented earlier. But as soon as these teams trying to win, and that little kid is going to get murdered, Hate to say that, but this is how it is.
Yeah, no, you raise a good point. When he played, he's only had 2 career starts, so no one was scouting him. Dallas wasn't even a team worth paying any attention to. In that game, Dallas fell behind 24-0 in the first half. And Kellen Moore, he does go on to throw for 425 and 3 touchdowns, but it's a lot of underneath stuff like you would expect. It's a 4-yard pass to Witten at the goal line. It's a screen to, I think, Dez at the 10, and then he literally breaks 2 tackles and runs it in. So it's an impressive game, but it's not a whole lot of – it's not his arm beating anybody, it feels like. It feels like a lot of stuff where the guy had to make a play for him.
Mm-hmm. And then one thing we can say to glorify and push Kellen Moore up, not to hate on him all the way, is that he's better than Brandon Whedon. He's better than Matt Castle. You know what I mean? So, he's better than those guys, right? But he's not better than Cooper Rush. I can put I think I listened to the show this morning. I think it was Talking Cowboys. What's this guy? No. It wasn't Talking Cowboys. It was on the radio station, 105.3 The Fan. It was Mickey Spagnola.
Mickey Spagnola,
yeah. The guy who does all the inside talking.
Yeah, it's like Cowboys. The Star or something like that.
Mm-hmm. He was saying that, hey, would you put your money on it? Would you put your money on it that Kellen Moore is not better than Cooper Rush? And I wish that guy had the courage of his conviction to say, 6'3", 230 pounds. If it was one game to win, I would put Cooper Rush out there versus the Kellen Moores of the world.
Yeah, I like that Cooper looks like he actually has a little bit of mobility to him as well. I don't know exactly what his rushing stats were in college. I'm sure if he did run, it was probably more broken play type scenario. But just seeing him move around, it looks like he's more content and competent in that. Let's see. So, his rushing stats in college are nothing. They're not even that. So I guess I can't even cite that. So it looks like if he did run, it was your standard, try and get a few yards and then slide. So I would draw that. But to me, he looks more fluid out there. He looks like he can move better in the pocket than I think Kellen Moore, who tends to just kind of sail a pass whenever he feels like he can't see. He just kind of tries to arc it over the line.
Right. And he fits the motif of Bill Parcells' coaching quarterback log, where he won a 4-year starter from college. He won a quarterback that graduated from college. So he fits all those check marks. And then, check boxes, put the checks in the boxes there. And then he won a quarterback that's not a celebrity quarterback. He won a humble guy, somebody who's a student of the game. He putting the check mark in all of the boxes there. So, hey, I'm not trying to praise Cooper Rush to say he's the next Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or even our guy Tony Romo. I'm not saying that he's that guy, but what I'm saying with my courage and my conviction is that he's better than Kellen Moore.
Yeah, and I think no question, if he is not the backup to Dak Prescott next year. Dallas is. I mean, I think he should be now, but if he's not by training camp next year, if he continues to kind of show what he's showing us right now, then there's something there going on where it's just favoritism at that point, which we already talked on with Linehan. But I think he should absolutely, just like Dak is your quarterback of the future, this guy should be your number 2 of the future, I think, because I don't know what it is. Something when I saw that they signed him, even just by no means do I scout or anything like that. Film session breakdown, that's your thing. When I want an opinion on a guy's talent and all that, I definitely look to you on that. But just a little bit I did see from him, and the things we've talked about, his size, his arm strength, all that, I thought this could be a really good pickup. I was more excited about him than Appleby or any of the other Cowboy or other quarterbacks they brought in, and I'm very delighted to see that he's showing this much this early.
Right. The things that I look for as far as a backup quarterback is, number 1, can he beat the blitz? Yes. Number 2, is he able to get out of the pocket if needed? You can put that yes. And then is he willing to pull the trigger? That's the major thing. I'll never forget, growing up in high school and middle school and all those things, when you're playing just playing basketball, in a sense. Let's go switch over to another sports. Sometimes you can have your best friend or your buddy who's a good shooter, a good jump shot shooter, right? But he gets out there in the game and he don't shoot the shot. In order for to win the game, you got to shoot the shot. So will Cooper Rush shoot the shot? I would say yes. The pass to Rico, that's a primetime NFL pass that he did, just seam line up the middle. The ability to find Brian Brown to the edge, and also pulling the trigger on number 19. Him passing the ball down the field is amazing, and not just doing a check off, showing that he's studying the tape. He trusts what he sees in the game. He trusts what his eyes sees out there on the field as far as the defense. He knows how to read the coverage, whether or not it's a cover 2, if they playing a soft shell cover 3 defense. He's picking it out because they're not just sitting back saying, okay, it's preseason, we're not going to show any we're going to just play prevent defense. No, these guys are at least in cover 2s, cover 3s, even cover 1s and things of that nature. So, and then the first play that I saw, one of the first series, I believe, on Cooper Rush, when he kind of bobbled this ball or what have you, he still kept his composure and was able to get the ball out and stick to his fundamentals and got the ball down the field. When I said that, I said, I love that,
Yeah, that's something you don't usually see from rookie quarterbacks, let alone undrafted rookie quarterbacks out of Division II, I believe. I think Central Michigan's Division II. Maybe not. It's definitely not a Power 5, obviously. So, yeah, that definitely says a lot there. Let's see. It looks like on another note, we were talking earlier about Odell Beckham getting injured. Looks like it's just an ankle sprain, so Giants dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, so, like I said, I wish him nothing but the best. I'm not one of these rave fans that want injury on the opposition. Right. I want to be able to have the best player out there so that we can match our good against their good, So come week 1, I don't want no excuses. I feel like the Cowboys are going to hang 31-plus points on the Giants, and the Giants are going to score no more than 17 points. I just feel it, I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, I'd love to see that happen. Definitely whenever we get close up to the game in the week leading into it, days leading into it, we're going to have to start making this a regular thing here and start putting up some gentleman bets or something.
Oh, yeah. That, like I say, pay me in beer,
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, let's see. So what other kind of general impression do you have regarding the defensive unit? I know we've got a lot of guys with hamstrings and things like that are kind of slowing them down a little bit, but I've heard still from when they have been on the field, I've heard a lot of good things about Awuzie and even Jordan Lewis a little bit. I've heard Skandrick as well. I know he's not a young guy, but still good to hear that he also appears to be back to full form.
And this is the thing I got here for the defense. Sunday, Monday, and Thursdays. If you can't play on those days, I don't give a care what you do through the week. I know games are won through the week, but if you cannot produce for me Sunday, Mondays, and Thursdays, then at this point I don't like you on the team. So something with these rookies, I'm kind of upset and perturbed about this, but I wish these guys can figure out a way to get these soft tissues healed up so they can get out there on the field. Now, I will give them this one pass this year, this first year, right? For them going out, way out of their elements. They out there in California, different type of climate, different type of temperament out there on the game, pace and all that stuff, tempos and all that jazz. But what I want to see now is that these guys get back out there on the field. Regardless of where they were drafted at, they got to figure out to be healthy, like your Ryan Switzers of the world. It's zero excuse. Ryan Switzer, Xavier Woods, the Awuzie kid, even the guy from Marquez White, White and Jordan Lewis. All these guys, they need to figure out something, because come hell and high water, I want these guys out there on the field. It makes no sense. It's kind of redundant for us to be able to have these type of hamstring injuries. Soft tissue injuries can be avoided with fluids intake and a lot of stretching, but there's something out there that they need to figure out, you know.
Yeah, they definitely need to. We don't need a whole team now of Morris Claibornes.
Right, and that's what I'm having nightmares of, hot flashes of. I'm sitting here like I'm in cold sweats talking about these guys better not be the Morris Claibornes of the world. They better not. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like I wasn't aware that Xavier Woods, you were saying he's also been hampered by this here lately now?
Yeah, it's like a bug that's going around saying, hey, I want your hamstrings, you know?
Yeah. But, I've been hearing a lot of good on him thus far in training camp, that he'd been playing really well. So that's a shame that right as he's getting all that momentum, he gets taken down by a nagging injury.
Yeah, so you know, and it's all about the rapport and the continuity of each and every week. I want you out there each and every week, but the only thing that I can fall back on would be I was reading a report. I was just somehow reading a report. Odell Beckham rookie year, he had hamstring injuries, and he didn't start to play until week 1. You know, week 2 or week 1 or something like that. Yeah. So if they can all come out to perform like he did, but on the defensive side, then I'm all, you know, I'll calm down then, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. The Odell coming out party was the ridiculous one-handed catch in front of Brendan Carr.
Right.
I remember that was his first or second game, and they still didn't even really know what they had in him. So unfortunately, he's a bit of a diva. So people are a little bit torn on whether or not they would want him on their team. I always think you just have to have the right counter personalities and right culture around it. But, I mean, as we've said before, I don't know that the Cowboys necessarily have the right culture as well, not talking about, like, excessive suspensions for, like, arrests or anything, but more on the front of, like, the defensive issues, like some substance and stuff like that. Randy Gregory, Rolando McClain, you know, guys like that.
Yeah, that deal there. I'm just still puzzled and baffled about that. Our guys, with the suspensions, with the NFL making its rulings to penalize us a lot heavier. I was watching the news earlier today. For example, this guy Darren Lee, who plays for the New York Jets. He's a middle linebacker, outside linebacker. Had an altercation with a woman. Allegedly, some violence was involved, some assault was involved level, and the NFL decided not to even push anything further. They just kind of swept it under the rug. But we all know that if that was for the Cowboys, anything like that would have been minimum of 6 games or maybe some type of ruling to hand down on us, because we're one of the teams that we the whooping board, you know, of the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the fact that the Cowboys are the most recognizable and polarizing team, I would say, really, in all North American sports at this point. I think they're now the most valuable sports franchise in the world, or it's either first or second. But definitely that, and the fact that Ezekiel Elliott is, you know, a face and star of the future and all of that, whereas the guy you mentioned before, I hadn't even heard his name. You could have asked me about him, and I wouldn't have been able to tell you the team. So even though he's a division rival, so
No, this is for New York Jets. So
Oh,
it's
Jets, not Giants. Okay.
yeah. So he's a linebacker. He's from Ohio State, believe it or not. I think his name is
Hmm.
Darian Lee or something like that. You can do a quick Google and you'll see all the information. Whereas we're gonna sweep that under the rug. You don't play
Yeah.
for a team that's important. But it is what it is. Demontre Moore, he's getting a 2-game suspension, and Geronimo Allison for the Green Bay had the same type of transgressions, and he only get 1. So I don't know
Yeah.
how the NFL managed to roll out their rulings or roll out their suspension, but it seems like the NFL Players Union needs to step it up and say, hey, let's make it fair and balanced throughout the board. If you're going to suspend one guy for said crime, you're going to have to do the other for the other guy, regardless of which team they play for, the exposure or public opinion or media pressure. So I just hate that part of being a loyal Raven Cowboy fan. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it really is, because the main thing you want above all is consistency. It's one thing to be 6 games, but if it was like established and it was consistently ruled that way, then at least we would know what we're dealing with. The problem with this
Hmm.
is going in, we were hearing it might be a game or two, it could be as high as 4, but that would be appealed down. To get hit with 6 was like a cheap shot, like a sucker punch out of nowhere, essentially. So that's the problem. Is if that's the new to me, if that's the new standard,
Hmm.
and it's used in a situation where, in this case, I don't think there's the smoking gun. I think the burden of proof was put on Zeke, rather than innocent until proven guilty. I felt like it was the opposite for Zeke, if that makes sense,
Right,
because
right.
the NFL's own statement made it sound as if they said they believe that it happened, and they were taking her word over his. And I think that's where it gets sticky there. But if the NFL had consistency in this sort of thing, and they used it in cases where it was clear cut, whether it was like the former Giants punter Josh Brown admitting to it, or some other situation like that, the Ray Rice thing, then fine. If it's consistent, I love 6 games,
Hmm.
but I feel like you have to be consistent, and you have to actually make sure that you have evidence of it, and not just say we think it happened.
Right, or even when you have the actual evidence in its face, you have a arrest report with the Adam Pac-Man Jones, who it
Hmm.
wasn't alleged or anything of that nature. He was actually arrested, and he actually spat on a lady,
Right.
which they eventually just dropped that off the record. But it was actually happened. That's something like him actually spitting on a woman. So
Right.
now this is something that's factual versus something that's he said, she said case with Ezekiel Elliott, and the NFL decided to say, okay, we're going to spend a year's time in investigating and evaluating this scenario. Whereas you got something factual, tangible, something that you can physically touch, a police report and a arrest, what you call that, a mug shot and all that jazz
Hmm.
on a player. Then you say, oh, okay, we're going to give this guy 1 game, and then you're going to get something that's non-intangible like the Ezekiel Elliott case, and say, well, we're going to give this guy 6 games, and then you're going to throw in the actual aspect of him pulling down a girl's top, and then you're going to lament and say, well, this is not part of the ruling, but we're going to dangle this carrot in front of the media to paint the picture. And you know what the funniest thing about this altogether collectively is, when I was explaining this to my wife, who's not into football like that, she said, well, why is the NFL going after their own player, and
Hmm.
it baffles me. And I said, well, it's a great divide between the NFL players versus the NFL player union, and the NFL itself, the shield. And I can't even explain it in a way. And she said, it's
Yeah.
kind of weird, because if you want to keep your brand up, you might want to keep all this information in house, So
Right.
it's
And I
crazy.
think, yeah, I think part of that is that it's an overreaction, because they've been just, you know, the media and everyone has gone after them relentlessly because of things like
Hmm.
the Ray Rice situation. and rightfully so. When you see the tape and you know the NFL had seen that tape and made the decision they made, and then were reactionary after the fact, only when the outrage came, then yeah, that's problematic. But I think it's the NFL overreacting here to try and be like, look, we did it right. We threw the book as hard as we could at a face of the league at this point, and then it's almost like pleading to whether it's mainstream media, whatever, of like, okay, so will you like change the narrative about us that we can be hard on domestic violence now? And I think it's a very difficult case because we know that there are so many character issues and red flags with this young woman and everything. And that's not to discredit as a guarantee in any way that Zeke didn't do what he's being accused of. He may well have, but there hasn't been a smoking gun yet. And to me, you have to go with innocent until proven guilty. And I just haven't – I've seen circumstantial. I haven't seen anything confirming anything, and yet you have all these character issues with her. The leaks that came out from the NFL was furious about it. Everything with her, threatening to ruin his career, openly discussing with a friend, blackmailing him, talking price, things like that. So yeah. I don't know. There's a lot in this case that I just feel like the NFL was so gung ho to try and fix its own image, it didn't consider what was actually there and viable.
Yeah, and then when you're talking about, if you want to be, if you want to hold some type of concession for this, I believe what the NFL or the league should do is have like a flex penalty for these domestic violence, and say, okay, we're gonna put you through this investigation. Now, in the event if any derogatory or bad imaging pictures comes out to the forefront, then we have the right to go back and add this penalty to you. Now, if we find out that you lied or anything of that nature, then we have the ability to flex these penalty on you, meaning that they need to have like a new ruling, whereas if found said player did these type of transgressions, then we will administer the punishment. But you can't punish somebody off of alleged incident. So,
right.
For example, you may travel to work and you may go 85 every day, 85 miles per hour, and the cop just never pull you over, and then he decide to pull you over when you go 67 or 65 or in the 55 mile per zone speed zone, and then he say, well, I didn't catch you the other day, but I saw you about 2 or 3 weeks ago going at least 85, so I'm gonna tag this to you. You just can't operate like that. So I think that the NFL needed to revamp their situation, and then on top of that, you got to understand too as well, the lady that's leading the investigation, they got to do a little bit better job, because from my opinion, she shouldn't be able to handle the investigation. For those who don't know, she's a rabid Raven New York Giants fan, so those things like that,
oh, yeah.
It's just kind of, I think her name is Lisa Friel, the head sex crime investigator for over 20 years, and now she's overseeing the actual Ezekiel Elliott case. So what kind of light did that put Ezekiel Elliott in?
Right.
And it's just so unfair when you talk about the Josh Browns of the world, when he only get one game. So these type of things, if you put them all together, just sound like, hey, the league is colluding against the Cowboys to put these type of suspension on them. And I do know that you get over 65% of the fan base who's not even of the NFL, 65% of the fan base that's not even of the NFL, Dallas Cowboys community is going to say, yeah, he deserves 6 games. Better yet, he deserves 8 or 10. So it goes back, not to be so long-winded on this, it goes back to the actual commissioner, Rodger Goodell. He signing an extension of 5-year contract.
Yeah.
You got a segment of population right now saying, I hate Rodger Goodell, he don't know what he's doing. But then you have the other segment of the population that, like the New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Redskins, say, oh, he's doing a good job. He got Zeke Elliott suspended for 6 games. Yes, I love him. Sign him for another 5 years.
Right. Yeah, and That's definitely a sticky situation with that. I think Goodell, when he started out his tenure as commissioner, he came down hard. If you recall the timing of that, it was right around the Michael Vick dogfighting ring.
Hmm.
It was like within his first couple months that all came down, and he came out really strong. But then I think he fell back and kind of just looked the other way for the most part on a lot of these things, like the Ray Rice incident and things like that. And now that he's suddenly trying to kind of, stick his chest out again and all that, huff and puff, it doesn't come across as legitimate. It comes across now as more of an act and more like a vendetta as opposed to actually caring about doing the right thing and preserving the integrity of the league. What he's protecting in this case has been bottom line more than anything
Yes,
until
indeed.
now.
Until now,
So,
and just bringing up the Rodger Goodell's deal situation here in 2010, before this new collective bargain agreement came to light, he was bringing in the NFL alone $8 billion revenue per year. Now it's 2017. The actual NFL is making $14 billion. That's 14 billion with a B per
yeah.
year of revenue, annual revenue. His goal is what he lamented to the 32 owners, is that I want this league to get $25 billion of revenue annually per year. And at the pace, these revenue dollars for the actual NFL, no owner going to turn down money. And these are not $1 million. I'm talking about $1 billion.
Yeah.
And these are already self-approved contracts, regardless of the alleged quote unquote strike that is supposed to happen in 2021 or 2022, something like that, of that elk, is that these contracts are already guaranteed. So he did already cushion the actual revenue pipeline. So regardless of the scenario, Rodger Goodell brings revenue dollars and money to the NFL. And if you see that they monetize and they put everything out there, there's more games out there. There's more visualizations of the game with the Game Pass and things of that nature. So Rodger Goodell is doing his job. So I don't see Rodger Goodell going anywhere in the next few years.
Yeah, that's a great point. Even with the issues with the Tom Brady situation and Ezekiel Elliott, yeah, if it comes down to bottom line, then yeah, he's got to be more secure than ever right now, you would think. So very, very good point there.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so let's see. We've been going about an hour on that. Is there any other kind of thoughts or anything you had? Something to kind of wrap up, whether it's talking Cowboys or something like that. Before I let you go here.
Well, before we run, I just want to be able to say on this defense, still look out for number 93 and my dark horse, number 58, the Montre Moore. Number 93 is Benson Mayowa.
Yep.
These guys are still, when I looked at the tape, these guys are still flying out to the ball. Although Demontre Moore is going to be suspended for the first two games, he still may come back and still be your sack leader. The Taco Charltons of the world, we still have something to grow with him. Is this going to be a growing phase with him? Although
Hmm.
I didn't love the pick. I kind of like, okay, I'm just going to settle with the pick. I think
Right.
he's a solid guy. We don't have to worry about PEDs or off the field issues allegedly from right now. So it looks like he's buttoned up pretty sharp, and those are things that I like. And the Jalen Smith, I know we didn't touch on that. Guys, the guy didn't play a game in 600 days, so
Right.
let's give it time for him to get everything together before everybody become PhDs and doctors out there on the field saying, well, he didn't turn this way, or from a medical aspect, he didn't do this. All I can say is pump the brakes a little bit on that. He's explosive. He's showing explosive, getting off. He got great read. He got anticipation and instincts. Even at Jalen Smith at 85% is better than probably 80% of the linebackers in this league. So
Hmm.
just give it
Yeah.
time, and he's going to be one of those guys that you're going to look back and say, hey, this guy is a game changer, an explosive guy. He's fighting out to the ball and get to the mark. I want him on my team, and we're just going to be better with him. So we're going to see that in the future, guys.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I guess kind of my closing two thoughts to kind of build on what you were talking about there. With Jalen Smith, he got his first action. I think he played 12 snaps. He did record a tackle. And, yeah, some of the criticism you heard people trying to throw out there was like, oh, he overran the running lane. I'm like, okay, so he was overexcited and overran the route a little bit, missed the running lane, and gave up a little bit more of a gain. Is it a matter of missing it because of his foot or knee, or is it just nerves? And I didn't see anything regarding his form in those cases that would lead me to believe that it was a problem changing directions with his foot. So I chalked that up to nerves, and like you said, the fact that he hadn't played a game in nearly 600 days, the fact that he was even on the field running around was incredible to see. So I'm not terribly worried about Jalen Smith at this point. I don't know if he'll ever get back to Notre Dame levels, but as you said, even if we get him at 85%, that is still very possible Pro Bowl caliber player there. So looking back, that might be a hell of a steal in the second round. Even if you get a Pro Bowler, even if he misses 1 year, you got to take that, I think. Yes, and my dark horse, I think Malik Collins is going to have a huge year. I think I think he's looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 sacks, which from the defensive tackle is, a bit more. It's on the higher end, I would say, for a defensive tackle most cases. Last year he had, I think, 4 or 5 sacks, despite missing all of training camp with the foot injury. He played in all 16 games, and he came on strong late in the year. I think he's going to continue building on that, and I think he is probably the kind of anchor Rod Marinelli's been wanting at the defensive tackle for a while now.
Right. Yes, indeed. Whoever playing on the right end, it's going to eat from him. He going to demand a double team, and don't sleep on number 55, Stephen Paella. So he's going to – these two pillars of statue guys, these big plugs in the middle, they're going to be something to look for. And I wouldn't doubt it at all if he get 8 to 9 sacks or maybe double digits,
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining me again tonight here. We're going to have to start coming up with like a name or something for our show or segment or something like that for the new site. We'll have to start brainstorming on that. So, like I said before, if you got any ideas on whether it's something you want to do content-wise or something you want to talk about on the setup for the new site, anything like that, or any potential sponsors, anything like that, just let me know, and we'll try and get moving on that.
No doubt. And maybe sometime this week or next week, something like that, we can get some more information in, and I can share that out to you. And also maybe we can do a show like this live, on my page, on my YouTube page, if you're up to the task.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We got the same setup on our end as well. So the software that we've been using for our stuff, it's live broadcast as well. It's called Mixler. And it's got like a live broadcast page, but it's also got like a player I can embed in the site as well. So it's something where if someone goes to our website, it'll stream the live broadcast as well. And it's got interactive chat and everything, just kind of like the Google Chat or the Google Hangout thing has. So you can it'll show you some statistics like how many people are listening. They can give you feedback on like various analytics, like regarding, all right, you had more listeners in the second segment, things like that, and live chat and all that. So it's got some really cool stuff it's got there as well. So we can definitely do some stuff with your Facebook page, and we'll try and for the new site probably work in Mixler as well. So
sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I'm excited as hell to see where all this can go.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
That's been good, man. That's been my time. I really thank you guys for yours. And remember, you're listening to Nothing But the Bass. Salute.
All right. Later, man.